Good afternoon, Dr. Dodge here. What I've done here, I'm going to build a hill climb track. So I've taken some of my pre-bent womp stock, which is just taking a piece of thin plywood, putting it in your someplace where it's humid but not wet, and just letting it slow bend. Stand it up on its edge and maybe put some weight. This one I ended up doing some weight on and stuff like that, because it's a little more curved on this part than it is on the other part. So anyways, the idea is going to be something like this, where the car goes down the ramp and then up and ends up there. This will be a much smoother transition, obviously, and it'll all be built into one curved lump. The strips here will be used on the edges for reinforcing where the seam is. Since there's two levels of strips, they're going to get somewhat overlapped, so it gives me a berm to keep the cars in. And I've got some short pieces of wood that I'm going to use here underneath to seam it together with. From the side. You get the idea of what it's going to be here. Well, time to get started. All right, Dr. Dodge here. This is the first clamped up mock-up of it. I'm pretty happy with it. Seems to run a car decent. Start up here. Almost makes it up to the top of the hill. Almost. So we know with terrain and all of that type of stuff, it's going to be rougher. This is what it looks like from the side. I'm liking it. Start screwing and gluing tomorrow. So what I've done now is I've clamped all of my pieces together, and now I have soaked them using my spritzer bottle with a good shot of soap and some water in there. And I'm going to let this work on this all night. Well, hello, Dr. Dodge here again. First, we're going to glue these pieces together. So, in order to make the glue stick better, I use a spritzer. Got a little bit of soap in there. The same on this side. Layer up the layer glue. Push it around good. Trying to get it spread all over as best as you can. I like to pull it apart. See how it needs more. Definitely don't want spaces in there. Alright. Back on there. That's going to be pretty good. I'm going to put some clamps on him. Right up. Clamp on the other side. first thing we're going to do then is try to draw it together in the center. We're going to use a small drill bit, another larger drill bit, and the countersink head. So I'll drill holes, countersink them, and we'll put some screws in there. So you can see I've got 2 screws. I put them in the center of the overlap. That helps to pull the center of the board up together good. You always work anything like this from the inside out. So next we're going to go to the back side. I'm going to drill some holes. Change our bit. We're going to countersink our holes. I'm using number 6 1/2 inch long countersunk wood screws. So now we make the countersink in the top. Make sure that the countersink is bigger than the head of your screw. Further down is not a problem, but sticking up is. Then I'm going to put a shot of glue in there. Again, starting from the middle. Tight underneath. A little more. Same drill. No pun intended. Well, what I decided to do before I put it all up to dry is I put a reinforcing thing. This is going to be the launch point, so I wanted to have a little more meat there if I decided to do something interesting for a launcher. I'm also going to clean it up a little bit. My spritzy water. Up. It's the same countersinking process used on this side. Need to clean this out real good before it dries, because anything sticking out in here is going to interfere with trying to fit the other board in. Cleaned out there. That looks a little better. The water actually helps the wood glue soak into the wood. Makes a nice cleaner edge too. So you can see it's all dried up real nice looking now. the next thing we're going to do, put the other half of the hill on. Oops. Crashed my camera here. I'm going to put the other half of the hill on. It's going to be doing the same technique, gluing all of these pieces together. And there we have it. Those are connected together now. So I'm going to put this thing up to dry. If you watch, it will be much tighter. Put it in this sort of a scenario because it'll help hold that from back bending. And we're just going to leave it sit here and dry. So we're looking pretty good dry wise. So I'm going to attach my other rails again using the same technique. I'm going to actually attempt to overbend it slightly so that when it pulls tight it'll help. These will be shorter so it won't try to back bend as easy. And again, get it wet, glue, countersink the screws. I think I'm going to move from the 6s up to my box of 8s because I've got more of them, but other than that, the whole technique is still the same. So here it is. Gotten the two basic first ones down. I'm going to let the glue cure. I ran a bead of glue down the inside of both of them. I spritzed it with water, of course. And I'm going to turn on the dehumidifier, accelerate our drying. So, Dr. Dodge here. You can see this is getting unbelievably firm. I cut some pieces of aluminum. They're about 1/8 of an inch thick. They're just pieces of scrap. I keep aluminum stuff that's fairly thick all the time around that place so I can lop chunks out with my bandsaw, basically. This was a piece that I cut that freaking didn't work out for something else. But what I did is I just bent it against my knee over time. And you can see where our seam ends here. This piece is going to go in here, except in the very center, as a reinforcer to it, help to hold the bend, because it's obvious how much the wood tends to move. I also have made earlier this piece here, and it will be for the other end up here, because this thing, it doesn't fit it right now, but that's because this hasn't got its permanent final curve yet either. But that's what its permanent final curve is going to be. It's going to be like that. So in theory, what we're looking at is this is the Hillclimb. And we'll come up here and attempt to freaking make it all the way up to the top. That's why this section here is flat, and I'm gluing it flat down on the floor, because I want this is the launch to be straight and fairly smooth, and then get into the corner where it then makes the bend. So here it is, completely done, all dry. Mostly dried. You can see how rigid it is. Holds its shape great.